Hi, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for coming out tonight. I'm the founder and CEO of Captricity. This idea was born about 8 years ago when I embarked on my dissertation at Cal, and I found myself in the developing world. We started with digitizing handwritten documents, but we've moved beyond that. And today, I have something to share with you. It's a lot more of what we've been learning in the last few years, which is to answer the question of how enterprises can really leverage AI to deliver the best-in-class products and customer service. I think you folks probably know even better than me what the challenges are, and I hope to show you a couple of solutions that might guide the way. So the state of the enterprise, maybe a state of the union, is that we're experiencing massive demographic shifts. Changing at a rate that we've never seen before. 82 million millennials now become the prime target market for a lot of the products and services that we hope to sell in the future. And just the way that people interact with technology is changing the way that people expect products to feel and how much time they're willing to wait. And the regulatory landscape doesn't help either. Just in the insurance industry, there's the Department of Labor regulations that are threatening to, completely change the way that insurance might be sold, just as an example. But, the current administration certainly doesn't make it easy on the feeling of increasing uncertainty. Customer service is a huge issue. Many of our customers in the regulated industries, government, healthcare, insurance, they say that customer service is their #1 priority, bar none. And yet, they're also ranked among the worst at it. And tech-enabled competition is coming. In life insurance, there's Ladder. In health, there's Oscar. Even the government has its own little upstart called the U.S. Digital Service. And these incumbents, or rather these upstarts, are using data in really creative ways to personalize and to anticipate what their customers want, and to create these customer experience-focused solutions that are doing parts of what incumbents do better, cheaper, faster. And that's a scary prospect. The revenue churn that is happening and will happen is also a scary prospect. And so the challenge here for enterprises is actually still the same. It's just that the systems that they have with which to work with were built maybe 10, 20, 30 years ago. And those systems were built for, let's call it compliance and for workflow efficiency, and not for the age of big data and AI and being able to look across workflows. And so there's really two big problems at work. On one hand, there's a data access problem, and that manual inputs like calls and paper forms need manual interpretation. And the systems that service those inputs and interpretations are siloed from each other, creating fragmentation and no way to know one view of the customer across the enterprise. The other problem is that legacy IT costs are so high that there's really not a lot of budget with which to innovate. And it makes it so that it's really hard to change anything. And so as customers' expectations of the input methods evolve, these organizations, these incumbents, are getting left further and further behind. And all this contributes to when the customers have to use this old school way of giving information, very little information to make very important decisions on, and this siloed kind of manual style of decision making, let's say by underwriters or people who approve loans and claims, they're left to their own biases and their own efficiencies or lack of efficiency. I want to paint you a better picture and a story of a company that was able to transform itself from this threat from incumbents in a changing landscape. And we know Netflix well. That's, I guess, Reed Hastings in a bathtub of DVDs. But he built a business mailing DVDs. And he knew, just as the first example, DVDs were going away because the mode of interaction that customers wanted was going to streaming. And so at the time, it was a controversial choice to switch to streaming because they were already a public company, but they did. And they're better for it because now the big content providers can deliver straight to the consumer their content. And if they hadn't made that move, they would be completely disintermediated. But what's more important is that they knew what their proprietary edge was. It was the carefully curated set of data of all the recommendations that people make. And they knew what they were best at, which is to layer AI on top of that set of customer data to know what you want to watch, right? And that's how they got to where they were, because they really exceeded customer expectations that way. But here's the thing, they were able to survive this latest round of, I guess, changing landscape when the content providers started withholding their content from Netflix. And so they turned to their data and they turned to their edge and they said, well, what can we do to go from knowing what you want to watch into making what you want to watch? And there was an article a while ago, but a little known fact about their first show, which is a big hit, House of Cards, is that it's algorithmically designed. You know, they figured out from their data that people love David Fincher productions, and they love Kevin Spacey in just about anything, and they love the script and the storyline behind the British version of House of Cards. But so they decided to make another one, right? This is an example of a company taking the challenges in stride, focusing on aggregating their customer data together, sharing it across every department of their enterprise, and coming to the insights that drove their business forward, despite, you know, really strong headwinds. And so I'm not saying that it's as easy for large regulated enterprises as it is for Netflix, right? There's a lot more going on. There's a lot more complexity. But I have a few ideas I want to share with you about the criteria which will make AI successful in the enterprise. First and foremost, probably the most important thing, if there's anything you take away tonight, is that you already have the data that you need. It's first-party data, as opposed to third-party data is stuff that you can get across an API call or by, you know, asking, let's say, LexisNexis or Experian for the information. First-party data is information that is created from the interaction with your proprietary business processes and your experts, such that you know exactly what questions to ask, right? It's the dark data that's locked up inside paper forms, in call transcripts, in chat logs. That's the information, the type of information that, like what Netflix took to create the future that they have. And second, solutions got to meet enterprise stakes. And what I mean is, a lot of AI sounds really cool out there, but a lot of it, the stakes are pretty low. If Netflix recommends a movie that you don't want to watch, or if Facebook tags you in a photo, it's not the right person, no big deal. But the stakes here are so high that solutions need to be 99.9% in accuracy right out of the gate from day one in order to be really effective. Because you don't have the talent to really babysit the iterations of those models to perfection. In fact, that's the third point, is that I think we can all recognize, maybe outside of this room, but in large regulated enterprise, it's really hard to hire machine learning talent. But what if there was a better way? What if there was, just like AWS infrastructure made it a whole lot easier for developers, an AI infrastructure that made it so that business users could order up solutions that met these criteria, right? And it's against these criteria that at Captricity, we built an instance of what we believe is AI infrastructure for the enterprise. Now, this is not a Captricity commercial. I just want to share with you the consideration that we took in building what we've built. First and foremost, we wanted to honor the fact that you have customers and they want to interact with you in a variety of modes, including paper and calls and web forms and chat and whatnot in the future. And you don't want to worry about the future modalities that are coming in the infrastructure that you're building. And so we've effectively took all of our smartest people and spent the most amount of time in creating AI that can understand your customers. We've effectively solved the handwriting problem. We're well on our way to solve 99.9% voice transcription. It's just a means to an end such that you can normalize all of your customer data into one place. Right? And once that's done, then it becomes effective to apply a whole host of data cleaning and validation and enrichment solutions on top. Because otherwise, it'd be a completely fragmented effort. And so let's say something comes in and the first name matches the social security number, kinda. Except if you transpose 2 of the digits, then it would match totally. You should be able to catch it and fix that without going back to the customer. And that's the kind of thing that we are enabling in our customers. A unified data feed in which the customer data is decision ready. And so once data is decision ready, then it's ready to go through what we call our human-in-the-loop learning engine. The learning engine, the point is that a business user doesn't really care about the intricacies of neural networks and whatnot in order to get the results. They just want a menu of prepackaged, almost like prefabricated houses, right? And that they know they can point towards a solution that they have and pretty quickly get the specific data to tune that engine to their needs. And that's what we've created here, is that we have a framework that can dynamically deploy models that are like prefabbed, that customizes to your needs and live in the cloud, that just do what that one customer needs it to do. It scales itself up, it retrains itself, but that all doesn't matter. The point is that the business user can now get to decisions that are higher value. And the business user can see that the data is more decision ready going into their legacy systems. For example, finding cases where there's a missing value. And instead of jamming it into an old mainframe that don't deal with it very well, routing it to the right exception queue. But to know that automatically without specifying for every corner case when to route it to an exception queue. That's the kind of intelligence that creates much better straight-through processing on your legacy systems than anything else would be able to do. But even more than that, it's not just about making the old more efficient, although that's what you have to do. It's the level on top in which we can start creating additional value in terms of decisions in the context of all the other data, right? All the other transactions you've made. You can only tell if a claim or a loan application is potentially fraudulent by looking at all of the other claims and loan applications, right? And that's where, if you had a prefabbed house of a fraud detection model and an infrastructure automatically trained it for you to detect that kind of fraud that you think you would otherwise get, that's how you get to the future. Now, consider everything in the colorful boxes to be one black box, right? You have IT below, and you have sort of your customer office on top. Imagine the type of monitoring and testing now it enables, because all the data is available, for you to lay out new types of customer experiences, right? It introduces a level of agility to your organization that otherwise wouldn't be there if you had to deal with the legacy infrastructure that you have. So with the last few minutes, I want to show you just what exactly do we mean by normalizing data. Right? It's really messy, and you don't want to mess with it, but the data is so important. On the left here, what you see is a register book from East Africa in a rural clinic. This is what they use to track vaccinations. And one of our customers, PATH, a great nonprofit, they were able to, within weeks of sending us these images, put into place an intervention that drastically altered the way that they were thinking about the monitoring and evaluation of this vaccine program. Literally making sure kids get vaccines. On the right there, you see a couple of death certificates. For a capture vendor, death certificates are they're the ultimate nightmare, and you can see why, right? That on the bottom there, sorry, it's behind the chair, that says respiratory arrest. That's a primary cause of death, right? Captricity works with lots of insurers, and lots of life insurers really care about the cause of death. Now, when this claim came in, they might have typed that into a system, but that's all they did. But through our analysis and working together, we found that there's actually a secondary, a third, a fourth, a fifth cause of death that never get digitalized into data. But what we also found was that those secondary causes of death tend to be the chronic conditions, whereas the primary cause of death tends to be sort of the ambulatory or the sudden conditions, like what happens in the hospital. So pneumonia is a cause of death that masks all these chronic conditions like diabetes or hypertension that actually are manageable. And so if an insurer, let's say, wants to develop a new product that has, healthy living as one of its outcomes, right? Biasing, habits, they have to know that information. The thing is, they have that information, and the AI infrastructure now makes it available to use. And so, final slide here. The second half of the battle, if the first half was acquiring the data, the second half is using it. And this is the fun part. This is the part that I don't need to tell you about, so I'll stay super high level. But once you have all your customer inputs normalized into structured digital data, then you could use that data towards, let's say, increasing revenue and run your organization like a modern organization that has marketing automation, that has CRM, right? And the data to improve business conversion and target new segments, and even seeing whether like that address change request matches a profile of somebody that's about to buy a new piece of product. You can use that data to drive operational efficiencies. Effectively, you can replace the manual work, the rote work that was in processing the unstructured data into structured data. And of course, you can use the new channels and to support not only the new modes of customer experience, but also the old ones that you have to support. And in doing so, you enable in all the modes faster response times, and in net, this is a way to consider how to get to better product and better customer service. So, thank you.
Thank you very much. So just one question from me, and then I'll open it up to you guys. I think we have a microphone somewhere. Do we not? Yes, Andrew has one. Maybe a word on, I guess you alluded to this, but on the social engineering part. I mean, it sounds like AI can do amazing things in the enterprise if you follow the rules and suggestions that you suggested. But it sounds like at the end of the day, a lot of it is very human. It's about convincing people to do it and solving where they fit the technology in the organization. Any additional thoughts on this? I guess, when you sell to large enterprises, do you even talk about AI? Do they even need to know?
That's a great question. We've run into one case where our champion said, in this room, don't mention machine learning or AI at all. And I think that's rare, but that certainly still happens. I would say that a lot of large regulated enterprise just is skeptical. They're well aware of the hype, and they can also kind of feel just how far away it is from their own day-to-day realities. And so, as you can see by the way that we talk about the solution, we have to come at it from a very solution or a business impact focused approach. And the algorithms that we're really impressed with, and I didn't get a chance to talk about tonight, are inconsequential in those rooms.
Great. Of course, one over there.
Hi, thank you for coming in. Quick question. When you talk to customers, are they more interested in really about the data normalization components of your solution, or are they more interested in the AI? It seems like you're playing in a particular piece of the industry where you're trying to build a solution, but you've got a lot of microservices that are popping up. So if I say on one side on the AI, I have machine learning componentry from AWS, IBM, and certain aspects, and then on the normalization side, I have, our master data management and all of that componentry. What are customers really interested in as part of your solution?
Yeah, that's a great question. Thank you. I would say that what our customers are interested in is shifting, but at the end of the day, running a large public regulated enterprise, it's all about being able to reduce the cost of operations, being able to target new customer segments. Having AI is a cherry on top.
Plus also in terms of all the services, presumably it's all on-prem, right? With all the data that you need to deal with is very much on-prem.
Right.
In terms of like Amazon and being able to come and play in your territory, that's less likely.
Well, we are 100% in the cloud.
Is that right? Okay.
Yeah.
So I guess different question then. Are people, especially in large Fortune 1000 companies, are they there in terms of being happy to work with cloud providers and moving their data to the cloud?
Yeah, that was the biggest uphill battle that we've had to fight, but we've never lost a customer to an unwillingness to put their customer data behind our firewall, because we have spent an extraordinary amount of effort in gaining the security credentials. But not only that, we've always prided ourselves on gaining one more level of security than what the industry or the particular industry we're targeting actually needs, just to impress upon them sort of how seriously we take it.
Great. And you alluded to how technology works behind the scenes. Do you want to tell us a little bit about what you've built?
Sure. Let's see where to start. I don't want to run too long, but at the heart of it, we have what we consider a machine intelligence operating system. Operating system in the sense of it dynamically allocates resources, whether it's compute or human intelligence, to create models. And I'll describe it in contrast. A lot of production quality models in the big players are how I imagine a floor full of PhDs working like they work on a hot rod in a garage of making the perfect vehicle, and that one model is going to run everything. Our approach, like I mentioned, is more of a prefabricated house. Each pattern solves a particular enterprise problem. And we essentially purposefully overfit that model on the fly to that customer. And we dynamically generate these models and put them in the cloud so that that customer has their own models in the cloud. And that the model learns by itself, and over time it gets better and better. And so the human component that requires to get the level of accuracy up to 99% gets lower and lower. All that is transparent to our customers, but for us, that's how we make up for the growth in the business in terms of starting more heavy in sort of human contribution and eventually to a full machine intelligence solution.
All right, that's unfortunately all the time we have. You'll be around after this, right? So you guys can ask any question directly. But thank you very much. We appreciate it.
Thanks, man.